to the government. And you know what they said? This is because, first of all, we do not want to give that same right to all of the other countries, to Germany, the same rights to France, or to Italy, or to any of the other countries in Europe. So therefore, they signed the IGA 1, not IGA 2. So it's very interesting, and a lot of these IGAs that have been signed are different. Okay, they're not cookie cutter. So the governments are negotiating, and you have to actually look at each one of them separately.
I think the big thing that you need to keep in mind from all of this business is that compliance, coming out of the cold, it's really time to do that, as Darlene said a little while ago. Because more and more, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, but I'll say it again, more and more governments are talking to each other, banks are talking to their governments, and then the governments are talking to the United States. You have to face the fact that pretty soon you run the risk of going to the United States and having somebody look at your passport or pass it under the little, the little scanner and saying, "Hello, ma'am, welcome back to the United States. Would you please come over into this room with me?" Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. The IRS will soon require state to give all information on passport applications. Yeah.
Like soon, like. What soon mean?
Within a couple of years.
Sorry. Yes, but they're. I mean, it's right. It's in law, but I mean, I don't think that they're actually.
They are doing it. I had to do it to get my passport.
Okay.
In
In any event, it says on your passport application, that you are aware that this information can be,
Right, but
given.
when I renewed my passport in London, that was on the piece of paper, and it was front and center. The first thing you had to tick the box and say, "I am current," and I attested this. And you had to sign that before they would even process my passport application.
There you go. Okay. Yes, we have.
And they also ask you for your social security number.
Sorry, they also ask for your social security number, and they actually notify the IRS that you have, in fact, obtained a renewed passport.
Yeah.
So the IRS actually checks. It's not just a benign thing anymore.
Okay.
But Lucy, can we get in one thing? Because what is going on?
Who's talking?
Me. Oh, sorry. I have the mic. Children of our members who are never lived and reside, and we've gotten their citizenship now.
This is the most terrible thing, and that's also what I said to Treasury. FAWCO has been advocating for all of its 80 years for citizenship rights for its members and their children, and now their grandchildren. And now we find that we've given them a poison pill, and very frankly, many of us are thinking, should we have done that? Or advising our kids, think twice before you actually, have your grandchildren naturalized. What can we do? They are all subject to U.S. tax, and they should all be filing their FBARs when they start making big allowances and so on. Yeah.
Hi, Lucy. I just have one point on that too. Is that they're now saying that children who are eligible for U.S. citizenship, regardless of whether or not they filed or not, can be pursued in terms of when they come to the U.S. It says you were born to U.S. parents or whatever, so you were obligated to file taxes even though you never got your U.S. passport.
Absolutely. You may not have a U.S. passport, but how about the number of people who come to me and say, "Oh, my bank doesn't even know I'm American because I have German nationality," and so they don't even know. And I say, "Where were you born?" "Well, Delaware." Okay, they know. And the same thing applies to your children. The banks are gonna have, I think it's 10 questions or 14 questions, I don't know, that they have to give, that they have to answer, and if they answer yes to 4, am I right, things, they will know that that person is or is very, very likely an American. And one of those things is, do you have an American parent?
Okay, and now I have a second question first. years ago, when I went to Overseas Americans Week with you, I remember talking with the State Department about the Travelers Alert program, where you sign up with the State Department and then they're able to send you emails relating to security issues or protests around your country where you're living. At that time, they absolutely assured me and everybody in the room that there was no connection between signing up with the State Department for those travel advisory services and the Treasury Department. Do you know if there's any link now?
There is none. There is none, and it's a good idea to do it. State can only use that information for the purposes that it is supposed to use it for, okay? And that applies to all information that state gets. The problem with the passport business is that the IRS actually got the law changed to require state to do that. But that's passport applications. That's not, that you should be, it's a very good idea to be signing up with the warden system or whatever it's called in your country so that you do get information. That brings me back, I said that there was something more in the State Department thing that I wanted to mention. I don't know how many of you this applies to, but you probably know that we are now able to transmit, sorry, an American citizen married to a non-American having a child abroad. Bye-bye, Darlene, thank you so much. Thank you. Can transmit U.S. citizenship to a child born abroad if that parent has spent 5 years in the United States, 2 of which after the age of 14. Okay, that's the standard thing that we all know applies to us, and even to some of our children. For an unwed couple, the law is a little bit different. An unwed mother must have spent 1 year continuous in the United States, not 5 years plus, 5 years, 2 of which, but 1 year continuous in the United States. Now, that sounds like, gee, she's really getting it easy, but that's not necessarily true. A lot of people spend, go to school in the United States, go and visit their parents, and their grandparents, and all this kind of stuff, but proving that you have spent 1 continuous calendar year in the United States is not necessarily easy. So there are some unwed mothers unable to prove that. So State Department, that's one of its legislative initiatives, that it's asking Congress to change that so that the unwed mother of a child born abroad would have the choice of 5 years, 2 of which after 14, or 1 year continuous. That's a big deal. That's in response to our talking to them over the years.
Lucy, I just wanted to make sure. You said calendar year. It's not 12 continuous months.
No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said calendar. No. But I mean 1 year on the calendar. It's 365 days. For an unwed father, it's even stranger. An unwed father has the 5 years, 2 of which, but he has to prove that the child is his, DNA testing, and he has to sign a thing saying that he will support the child until the child is 18. Now, this is a pretty hard thing to enforce, but that's what he has to do. For various reasons I will not go into, that is not one of their legislative initiatives because it won't work. It's been challenged twice before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has upheld it as not unconstitutional, so that will stay. For the grandchild. Now, some of you will have done this. You will have had transmitted your citizenship to your grandchildren. Because your children were born American because they were born abroad, but they were American because of you. The grandchild, your child doesn't satisfy that 5 years, 2 of which after 14 thing. So we have this wonderful thing that FAWCO and Arrow worked very hard on over the years, expeditious naturalization for those grandchildren. Wonderful. But the law says that the child
benefiting from this expeditious naturalization must be, or be intending to, reside in the United States. State, fortunately, thinks that residing in the United States is a hard thing to prove. Many of us are worried because you sign the little paper, and I had to say very honestly, I have no idea whether my grandchildren will ever reside in the United States. That's another of their legislative initiatives. They want to change that wording to the child must be physically present in the United States, which actually works with the way we're doing it now. You mean that they're, because, oh, this is complicated, forget it. Forget it. They're working on not only the unwed mother business, but they're also working on making it easier for us to transmit to our grandchildren. Just leave it at that. Okay. Yes, Margaret again is simply asking for your stories, and we'll do what we can, and so on. And yes, I like this. This is her last slide, and she says, you know, that you do have these responsibilities, but I like the way she puts it. One of your rights as an American citizen abroad is that you do have a congressman that you can write to. You do have a senator that you can write to and say, come on, ratify CEDAW. Take advantage of that right. Talk to your legislators and help us talk to them as well.
Luke, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Based on one of your forums, I wrote to my state representative, national, but my guy in Texas, and said, please support 597. And he responded that it's been sent to committee. He's on one of the committees that it was sent to. What do I do now? What's my next step? Or does that come in your next newsletter to us?
Well, no, we can say right here, but I remember you asked me this a couple of days ago, and I said, remember to ask that question here. The next thing for you to do, the best thing that any of you can do when you're writing to your congressman about this is to ask them to co-sponsor that bill. And so he's on one of the committees, fine, but ask him to co-sponsor it.
So go back to him now and say, please, would you consider?
Absolutely,
okay.
Because when they hear that kind of thing from their constituent, they listen. You know, you put it very well. Say it again, how you put it.
When I wrote him, I said, I am a registered voter in your district. I own property there. We are abroad because of my husband's employment with one of the largest employers in your district. We have issues. Can you support this bill to help us? And, you know, so I tried to hit those points. We own a house there. I pay taxes there. My husband works for a big company, international company that has a lot of people abroad that are all based in your district. So I tried to hit those.
That's just excellent, really excellent. There are now, as a result of Overseas Americans Week, there are several new co-sponsors on 597 because of our having gone to the offices and said, you know, this is what this bill is, this is who we are, and we need for you to sign on to this. When I was in Washington last time and saw my congressman, who's now my senator, but at that point he was my congressman, I asked him to do exactly that, and he did. He did. When they hear from their constituents, even if you're here and they're there, they pay attention. It may not be enough, but it's better than nothing. So do write to them. Yes.
And we were talking about this the other day. So you're talking about writing to your congressman. Sorry, thanks. You and I were talking about this the other day, since we're talking about writing to our representatives. We're all happy that VAWA has been signed into law. VAWA still does not cover us. Living
There's another acronym, the Violence Against Women Act.
Still does not cover us, even though President Obama signed it into law this week. But it is something worth writing to your representative about. I put the link on the FAWCO Facebook page and on the website this morning, the FAWCO website, if you want a template. If your representative voted to pass the Senate version of VAWA, thank him, but remind him this is great, but you're still not doing me any favors because I'm not in the country. And if your representative is like mine who voted against VAWA, then ask him why, as I will be doing when I get home. So I just wanted to let you know that resource is there.
When I was talking about FAWCO in Washington during Overseas Americans Week, it was funny. I said to them, you know, domestic violence is domestic violence, and wherever you have a domicile, wherever you have two people living in the same house, you can have domestic violence. And they got it, you know, that it was the percentage was perhaps even more, I don't know, but anyway, the percentage is going to be the same abroad as it is in the United States.
Yeah, that's fair. Ron, I am interested in if you have, I think Lucy and I discussed this, but if there's a way of getting other organization, women's organization in the US, to be able to support what FAWCO is doing specifically on this legislation. Because there are a lot of women's organizations, I'm thinking of one like EDGE, which has a very strong network, and supporting all type of legislation that is supporting women in developing countries and so on. Why could they take this as an issue to support us living overseas?
How would somebody in this room like to take that on? How would somebody in this room, that's not supercilious at all, Vera. No, I really mean it. How would somebody in this room like to do a little bit of thinking about the kind of women's organizations in the United States that we could try and work with? Vera?
I will do.
Are you saying yes?
Yes, I'm saying yes.
I'll tell you something else. Where's Gretchen?
She walked out.
Oh, yeah.